Hi everyone. So my name is Jessica Sheen. Today I'll be presenting about the EPA Sustainability Assessment and Management Method, and I have abbreviated this to the SAMM just for the convenience of this presentation. To provide an overview of this method, the objectives here are really to assess the socioeconomic and environmental effects of any one sustainable action under a three-pillar concept. And it also guides policy decisions towards making better future sustainable actions and to do this, you would conduct it as a series of 4 steps, which I'll go into detail a little bit. And if we take a look here, this will be the flowchart that we'll be studying throughout this presentation, which provides an example of an SAMM conduction. So the first step is to conduct a screening evaluation as depicted through these top highlights. And the objective here is to determine if a program, policy, or project needs to follow SAMM. And it's very important to avoid delays in conducting this evaluation because a lot of times like the environmental issues do tend to be quite pertinent, meaning time sensitive. And so to determine whether or not a project, policy, or program needs the SAMM, you would conduct a you would use a checklist of the 3-pillar criteria, which is objectively scored from 0 to 3. So regarding whether or not it is a positive or negative criteria or effect, you would just numerically score them. And if there's a conflict between these 2 to 3 pillars, then in that case, you would use the full method. Okay, so our second step poses a problem definition and scoping, and we can see this as we move down the flowchart right here. So the objective is to define the problem through options identification. Options identification means like looking at alternative options. We're also looking to scope through stakeholder collaboration. And so this does take into consideration like federal partners, state and local governments, the private sector, non-governmental organizations, and other stakeholders. All right, so thirdly, we have the utilization of analysis tools. The objective here is to broaden the analysis beyond just environmental outlook to consider the additional social and economic factors. And to do this, it's very important to use like multiple tools in conjunction with each other because like any one tool used alone would not be sufficient to conduct the method. And there is a really heavy emphasis on data through these tools, which we'll see briefly. And finally, like one other aspect to consider is to have like a lay audience approach because there's a focus here with the uncertainty and sensitivity analysis, meaning that like this step really does portray like a very transparent view of the SAMM and therefore makes it very comprehensible to an audience that does not have a scientific background. Okay. So now we take a look at some of the environmental tools in terms of like the third step. So we could look at the risk assessment, which ultimately defines the overall risk/uncertainty predictions to the best of your ability, meaning that like despite the complexity and lack of knowledge, that would define like more of like a quantitative risk assessment. At the very least, there is like a systematic approach that does define a qualitative risk assessment, and that does help towards making the actual decisions later on in the method. And a life cycle assessment analyzes the cradle to grave design paradigm, which is taking a product from its initial production of raw materials through its industrialization, manufacturing, distribution processes to finally its waste. And so taking it from the cradle, the beginning of the product's life, through to the end, the death of the product's life. And we really want to definitely eliminate this design paradigm. And to do this, you would have to use a lot of data, which would be collected through a series of inputs, outputs, and emissions to really put this half circle into more of like a positive feedback loop. Okay. And now we could look at the economic tools. For instance, we have the ecosystem services valuation and the benefit cost analysis. And the ecosystem services valuation studies the total like ecosystem, all the ecosystem services as its contribution to human welfare. And this can be conducted through like a monetary measurement of ecosystem goods, functions, and services, specifically through like natural manufactured human and social capital. So if we take a look at the graphic here, we have all of our listed services compared from pre versus post restoration through devaluation, and then we have the monetary measurement depicted at the top. All right, and as we look at the bottom right here, bottom left here, we have the benefit cost analysis tool, which assesses the changes in welfare following the implementation of a policy. And this compiles like individual net earnings to generate collective social net benefit. So together, these economic tools provide a comprehensive profile of financial net benefits from taking any one alternative action. All right, so now we have the assessment models, and this ranges from the integrated assessment model to the sustainability impact assessment. An integrated assessment model studies the interdisciplinary merge of theory and data in order to address environmental issues. A caveat is that it does generate complex models because it deals with a very intergenerative or very long-term approach, which makes them extensive and pretty abstract for a lay audience. Comparatively, like a sustainability impact assessment integrates like projection, does have integrated projections of sustainability action effects from the perspective of the 3 pillars, along with any alternative actions. And the goal here is really to minimize the environmental impact through the optimization process. As we can see here, the optimization process utilized through an example model. All right. And finally, we have some broader scope tools that we can study, such as the environmental justice tools and the scenario analysis. And the environmental justice tools focuses on community-wide screening for severe environmental and or environmental health issues. It also can take into consideration the measurement of the community sustainability level. And together, like these measures all help to form guidance documents that discuss effective problem-solving methods for the community in terms of addressing sustainability. And scenario analysis discusses the paradoxical nature of forecasts, meaning that even though climate change scientists continuously make predictions about climate change with every coming season, it's impossible to really foresee into the future. So it seems a bit meaningless to really make any kind of projections based off of really like no knowledge. But to combat this, you would have the quantitative prediction model, which does conjure feasible future situations given the current conditions. So that really does help to kind of like quantify the forecast nature. All right, and so this is more of like a sub-step within the 4-step series of the SAMM, but we do have the trade-off and synergy analysis. And the objective here specifically with regarding trade-offs is to minimize any adversities of the compromise of the trade-off as posed by the 3-pillar concept. And when we look at synergy, the synergy aspect, we have the social, environmental, and economic benefits of a decision. And we can regard this right here, the latter half of the flowchart. All right, and finally, we have the post-assessment section. And the objective here is to guide organizations through the official decision-making process using the established written framework from the previous 3 steps, along with any recorded observations. And in culmination, these would pose as the results that will be used to conduct a post-assessment. One important component here is the sustainability indicator, which is a measurable aspect of the environmental, economic, or social systems that can be monitored for change over time. This is within a positive feedback loop system. And one final aspect of the post-assessment is to, of course, have continuous stakeholder collaboration. And so if we take a look, now we're at the very super bottom of the flowchart. We have our feedback loop system going on. We have our sustainability indicators as listed on this chart. And yeah, these are definitely not like, in terms of indicators, there's definitely not an exhaustive list, but it is fairly detailed, and you definitely do not need to take all of these into consideration for any one sustainable action, but they are all available for your use. All right. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And that's all I have.